While the nation slept peacefully, something extraordinary unfolded along the western frontier. A story so powerful, yet buried beneath everyday headlines. What happened over those 5 critical days that mainstream media chose to ignore? And why did this send tremors through Pakistan's military establishment? Picture this: 1,000 kilometers of combat theater coming alive. From the salt marshes of Sir Creek to the golden sands of Jaisalmer, something unprecedented was taking shape. The Army, the Navy, the Air Force, not as separate entities but as one synchronized war machine. This was Operation Trishul, 2025. But here's the question. When did national preparedness become less important than political drama? When did the strength of our armed forces become secondary to sensational headlines? The Indian military was rehearsing for real war, not symbolic gestures, not token displays. Real, massive, comprehensive war preparedness. Every movement calculated, every operation synchronized, every scenario planned with precision that would make adversaries lose sleep. Here's what makes this fundamentally different: the integration of space assets into combat operations, land, air, sea, and space, all operating as one unified system. Artificial intelligence tracking threats in real time. Intelligence fusion across platforms happening instantaneously. Unmanned systems creating an invisible shield. Electronic warfare capabilities that can blind enemy radars before they know what hit them. The time between detecting a threat and neutralizing it? Nanoseconds. Not minutes, not seconds. Nanoseconds. This is the new India. This is the military that refused to remain frozen in 20th century tactics while adversaries modernize. Now let's address the elephant in the room. Why did Pakistan issue emergency aviation notices immediately after India announced Operation Trishul? Why the frantic mobilization across the border? Why the sudden anxiety rippling through Rawalpindi's military headquarters? The answer lies in geography and strategic reality. Karachi, Pakistan's economic lifeline, sits directly southwest of Sir Creek. The same Sir Creek where Indian amphibious forces demonstrated their capability to launch beach assaults. The same coastline where Marine commandos proved they could establish a beachhead within hours. Every Pakistani military planner looking at the map understands the implications. Every general in Rawalpindi knows what control over Sir Creek means for Karachi's security. This is why Pakistan reacted with such visible anxiety. This is why their military spent sleepless nights tracking every phase of Operation Trishul. Can Pakistan afford a war? As per reports, Pakistan's reserves wouldn't last beyond 37 days of intensive operations. Their armored divisions lack fuel for sustained mechanized warfare. Their air force operates aging platforms, while India fields Rafales and upgraded Sukhois. How does a nation that struggles to power its cities plan to power a war machine? How does a military that depends on external suppliers maintain operational readiness during conflict? These aren't rhetorical questions. These are strategic realities Pakistan's leadership confronts daily. Operation Trishul showcased operational concepts that redefine modern warfare. Apache helicopters providing close air support, Chinooks ensuring rapid force deployment across the 1,000-kilometer theater, Sukhoi, Mirages, and Rafales conducting coordinated strikes, airborne warning and control systems orchestrating aerial operations, transport aircraft executing large-scale airlift under simulated combat conditions. At sea, ship-to-ship coordination reached new sophistication levels. Naval aviation conducted anti-submarine warfare drills. The maritime security apparatus validated its ability to dominate coastal waters and project power deep into the Arabian Sea. On land, armored formations, mechanized infantry, and artillery demonstrated lethal synchronization that turns individual weapons into an unstoppable combined force, and binding it all, the network, the invisible web of communication and intelligence that transforms isolated units into a unified fighting machine responding at electronic speeds. This operation sent multiple messages to adversaries. Every misadventure will have consequences. Every provocation will be answered. Every calculation must include facing a modern, networked, technologically advanced military. To the nation, your security rests on more than hollow slogans. Real preparation happens away from cameras. Real strength comes from relentless training and strategic thinking. Yet mainstream media chose to ignore this. While debates raged over trivial controversies, a transformation in national defense capability unfolded without coverage. When did protecting ratings become more important than informing citizens about their military's evolution? The nation deserves better. The brave men and women in uniform deserve better. While India conducted Operation Trishul with quiet competence, what happened across the border? Briefcases opened for cameras, threats issued for domestic consumption, nuclear rhetoric deployed to mask conventional weakness. This is the difference between a confident power and an anxious adversary. India doesn't need to threaten. India demonstrates capability and lets actions speak. When a nation cannot afford diesel for artillery, boasting about nuclear weapons rings hollow. When military reserves sustain operations for barely a month, aggressive posturing becomes desperation. Beyond hardware and tactics, Operation Trishul achieved psychological dominance. While India calmly executed a massive tri-services exercise, Pakistan rushed to issue aviation notices and mobilize forces in reactive panic. One nation operates from confidence, the other responds from anxiety. This psychological dimension matters as much as the military dimension. Deterrence works when adversaries believe both capability and will exist. Operation Trishul demonstrated both. Questions remain about what happened at Karana Hills. Questions about whether certain foreign nuclear assets were stored there. These may never receive public answers due to their classified nature. But here's what's certain. By conducting operations at locations of strategic significance, India demonstrated willingness to strike whatever targets necessary to defend national interests. The message wasn't subtle. The message was clear. No target is off limits when national security demands action. So what does Operation Trishul ultimately represent? It represents a nation that has stopped apologizing for its strength. It represents armed forces that have evolved from defensive mindsets to confident assertion of capability. It represents a strategic culture that understands deterrence requires both capability and demonstrated will. While mainstream media obsessed over trivial controversies, the Indian military conducted one of the most significant exercises in the nation's history. While talking heads debated inconsequential drama, brave men and women in uniform validated capabilities that keep adversaries awake at night. This is the India that refuses to be intimidated. This is the India that backs diplomacy with demonstrated military capability. This is the India that understands peace is best preserved by being prepared for war. Operation Trishul wasn't about aggression. It was about readiness. It wasn't about provoking conflict. It was about preventing conflict through overwhelming deterrence. It wasn't about chest-thumping nationalism. It was about cold, calculated demonstration of strategic capability. Pakistan's anxiety over Operation Trishul tells everything about its success. When adversaries panic over preparedness exercises, the message has been received. When enemy establishments scramble to respond to routine operations, deterrence is working. The nation should take pride in what Operation Trishul represents. Not arrogant pride, not jingoistic pride, but quiet, confident pride that comes from knowing defenders are prepared. The pride that comes from seeing armed forces embrace modernity. The pride that comes from watching capability replace rhetoric. In an era where threats evolve at electronic speeds, where warfare spans domains from undersea to outer space, where artificial intelligence shapes battlefield decisions in nanoseconds, can any nation afford to have a military that prepares only for yesterday's wars? Operation Trishul answered that question for India. But will the nation pay attention to what its military is trying to tell it about the changing nature of defense? The soldiers, sailors, and airmen have done their job. They've prepared. They've trained. They've demonstrated capability. Now it's time for the nation to understand, to support, and to demand this level of seriousness continues. Because freedom isn't free, security isn't accidental, peace isn't guaranteed. They're maintained by constant vigilance and evolving capability of those who stand guard while the nation sleeps. Operation Trishul, 2025. Not just an exercise, a statement of intent, a demonstration of capability, a warning to adversaries, a promise to citizens.